And welcome to What in the Heavens is Happening. This is Michael Bartlett talking about the current astrological events and how they're showing up on the planet. This week, we're going to finish up talking a little bit about Jupiter and Pluto conjunction, and then we're going to move into the Sun in Taurus conjunct Uranus that is going to be happening. So, I don't know, the first thing that comes to my mind when I look at this energy is a line that came out of Spider-Man a long time ago. The line is, with great power, there must also come great responsibility. This is something that wasn't really spoken about until the late 18th century in France, and then in early 19th century England, and then again in 1906 when Winston Churchill said, where there is great power, there is great responsibility, even indicating that it was already a cultural maxim up toward government at the time. There's this idea that if you have enough, you should be sharing with others. And this period that we've gone through over this last while has really shown a large massing of fortunes amongst a small number of people, and a larger population going without. And at some point there needs to be harmony. There needs to be balance. How many zeros does one need in a bank account to be able to feel safe and comfortable? Is I think what some of these individuals are here to find out. But what I've always wondered is, you have to drive through different areas to get to your places where you're experiencing this beautiful luxury that you're creating for yourself. And why would you want to drive through poor areas when you know that you can make a difference? Why would you want to not give the people around you the benefits that you're also receiving? We need to move away from this elitism and share the power. That's one possibility that can happen with this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. The French also have a saying, noblesse oblige. It's the idea that with having the extra means, you have the ability to be generous to those around you, because in a sense, weren't you granted a certain sense of generosity in your birth and in your experience of life? Yes, many people did work and earn it, but that doesn't mean you can't also give back to the society that made your wealth possible in the first place. Where are the noble characters when we need them? Jupiter Pluto can give us these individuals, but they can be stymied by the success-oriented blinders of being in the sign of Capricorn. It's going to be really interesting to see the children who are born during this time and who they become as captains of industry, as captains of power. Again, we're talking about the god Jupiter, which is the god of the heavens, and Pluto, the god of the underworld. And when they get together, nothing's really quite the same afterwards. So, of course, these issues bring up the sense, as we talked last week, in individual versus the collective, my rights versus the rights of my neighbors, foreigners. And where does that split really start? When do we start to be able to understand that we're part of a larger collective? Those of us who have rainbow families, so to speak, those of us who have family members who have married into different ethnic groups, different religious groups, people of different colors, they bring spice and flavor and color into all of our lives, regardless of what nationality or race or religion you started with. It's the showing that there's beauty along the whole spectrum of the human experience. That's what we're all here to understand. And so, this idea of my will versus thy will is really coming up strongly in these individuals who are believing that COVID-19, Sandy Hook, the moon landing, and even the Holocaust are all lies. It keeps them safe in the belief that the world is a safe place and that none of these things really happen. And the sad part is that these horrible things do happen to other people, and we need to help one another. There's an old saying, I believe I said it last week, trust in God and tie your camel anyway. This idea is that if you want to believe in a higher power, that higher power is going to want to co-create with you most likely. It's going to ask for you to have certain levels of responsibility to step forward and do the right thing. In the past, there's been such a corporate drive for profit versus safety of its workers and consumers, and which is more important. When we look throughout history, these are very interesting times we're going through, because when plagues have happened, when cholera epidemics have happened in the past, these energies surprisingly end up harming the wealthy and benefiting the poor. Because as we know, during this current COVID-19, besides the doctors and the nurses and other frontline individuals who are essential workers, if you look out when you drive around, if you happen to be out driving around to go and get things, you'll see construction workers, you'll see people who are doing house cleaning, you'll see people who are not making that money, the people who do not have the luxury to stay home during this time, who are not going to be receiving any money from the state, who are not going to be getting any kind of benefit. So they have to work. They don't get the luxury of being self-quarantined. And that's going to bring up something, because if the wealthy aren't going out and getting their own food and other things that they're needing, and they're sending people who they're paying a lot less to do it, then at some point they're going to be, they're either going to starve, or they might have to go out and get the food themselves, and then also get the chance of getting sick. I'm really frightened by the number of people who don't believe these things are happening, who right now are stepping up onto the city halls across the country and state capitals and complaining and saying government doesn't have the right to quarantine us, doesn't have the right to ask us to stay at home. Actually, I believe the government does have the right. The government has a larger, typically, understanding of what's going on, and therefore is going to see things in not through the individual eyes of each of us as a person. And in that sense, we need to be able to look at the things. What are the impacts that we cause? We're seeing now, of course, with the lack of using things, the lack of being on the roads, the lack of driving, we're seeing a lot less pollution happening. We can see our effect on the environment is very clear. And so maybe there are other things that need to be brought up and need to be brought into our awakening, into our awareness. I think that's really what this week is all about. Yesterday, Sunday the 19th, which is 2 days ago, the sun went into fixed security-oriented Taurus and will gradually meet up with freedom-seeking Uranus this Sunday and form a wide square to this point from Saturn and Aquarius. This is the most interesting energy, as you know, because Saturn and Uranus are the traditional modern rulers of Aquarius, and they're in a third quarter waning square. What that means is that it's in a phase that's called crisis of consciousness. It's what we don't know. And when Saturn and Uranus get together, we want to look for Uranian archetypes. We're talking about taking old structures and improving them, supporting innovative ideas, encouraging individuation that enriches the collective, finding ways of supporting both the individual and the collective without taking away from either. The point is, how do we create a society in which we are all enriching? When you think back in the day when we were in villages and living in little areas, there was room for everyone to exist. There was room for the person who lied. There was room for the person who maybe had some developmental issues. There was room for the person who was cheating. And because everyone would say, oh, that's so-and-so who is the cheater. Oh, that's so-and-so who lies. And you hold a space for them. But now we've become so limited in our way of wanting to stay safe and not to have to really think about things too complex. We don't want to be that, we don't want to make it that easy. So we need to find a way of making space for everyone in the world. I think I'm just going to do a little sidebar for a second. One of the things that's very interesting is when you look at psychological issues, what the DSM-4, what therapists and psychiatrists are working with people, the whole idea of behavioral health issues is more based on the society that sets up the framework and how they look at them, and not about it being a sickness. I mean, if these people are showing up in the experience of humanity, in the expression of humanity, we are here to deal with it. Whether we have siblings who have issues, whether we don't have issues ourselves, these are the things that we're finding ways of interacting and finding ways of accepting, again, the wide range of human experience, not just these set little safe ideas that don't change. So in that sense, I think fixity is going to be given a run for its money this week as the sun builds up and attaches itself to Uranus and Taurus. The other interesting thing that happens on Saturday of this week is at 24 degrees of Capricorn, almost 25 degrees, the ever quick and ready Mercury is going to be making a square to Jupiter in business at all costs Capricorn. So look for a little bit of a power grab there. Pluto stationing to retrograde. Before that, Mercury's going to be making a square to it, and then Mercury is going to be making a square to Jupiter because they're really close to one another. That Jupiter-Pluto conjunction now with Pluto going backwards is going to be heading back a little bit. Jupiter's going to be moving forward. It's going to be a wider gap, but Mercury's acting again as an intermediary, sorry. So Mercury has moved in an opening square of Jupiter and Pluto, and this is considered a crisis in action. This is the opposite of what we were talking about with the third quarter square. It's an opportunity to see what is right. Have I made the right decision? And remember, Mercury is the only god who is able to visit both his brother Jupiter up in the heavens and his brother Pluto down in the underworld. And Mercury represents as well the merchant class, people who are doing businesses. So, hopefully maybe we'll see some sort of awakening in this country to taking care of the small business owners, the independent contractors. Most of us who are astrologers or who, are independent contractors, most of us who have our own small businesses are being really adversely affected during this time. And so, how do we, the government's been a month now where people aren't making any money. How are these people surviving? We need to step up to the plate and we need to take care of everyone. So the other thing I think is also really important is we each need to speak our own truth. We need to contact our elected officials. We voted them into office. We need to remind them we voted them into office. And we need to remind them that we also buy the products of the lobbyists who are trying to sell things. So if we don't speak up as individuals and secure our collective freedom, a small number of people will continue to amass even greater fortunes, build more automation, and limit employees to save the costs, and the great divide will greatly increase. And the 1% will continue to control the majority of the resources on the planet. I don't think that's where we're headed. I think it's time to create a little larger sharing of resources and a sharing of understanding of what needs to be done. Thank you for listening to me today. If you'd like, please visit my website at coremichael.com, or if you would like a copy of the PDF for this talk, please feel free to email me at michael@coremichael.com. Thank you so much, and wishing you great grace and understanding as you go through this week. Take care. Bye-bye.